On the distant planet of Zephyra, a world filled with shimmering crystal forests and floating mountain peaks, lived a young alien girl named Lyra. She was small and delicate, with pale blue skin that glowed faintly under the twin suns. Her large violet eyes always seemed to hold a curious light, a brightness that made her family proud. Lyra's family had once been respected traders in their town, known for their skill with rare crystals and exotic technology. But in recent years, the pressures from the local council had grown unbearable. The council demanded heavy fees and taxes that the family could not pay. Fearful and desperate, her parents made a choice that shattered Lyra's world. One evening, under the violet sky, Lyra's father called her to the family home. Her mother's eyes were tense, and her father avoided looking at her directly. Before she could ask why they seemed so uneasy, a group of tall, armored aliens arrived outside the home. They were stern and silent, carrying strange devices that glowed faintly. "Lyra," her father said softly, almost breaking his voice. "You must go with them." Lyra's heart froze. "What? No!" "I don't understand. Why?" Her mother shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "It is not safe here. We cannot protect you anymore." The words hit Lyra like a storm. She did not understand how her own parents could send her away. A part of her wanted to cry out, to beg them to keep her, but she found her voice gone, swallowed by fear and confusion. The armored aliens did not speak. They simply motioned for her to follow. Lyra felt herself lifted gently yet firmly into a hovering transport vehicle. The interior of the ship was cold and metallic, with narrow corridors and glowing panels she had never seen before. The sound of engines thrumming filled her ears, and outside, Zephyra's crystal forests shrank quickly into the distance. As the ship moved through the atmosphere, Lyra's mind raced. She had heard stories of people being sold to the Galactic Merchant Guild, but she had never imagined it could happen to her. Her family's betrayal burned in her chest. How could they send her away like this? What would become of her? The transport ship was swift, moving through interstellar space toward a distant human colony called Terra Nova. Lyra spent hours sitting alone in a small holding compartment, staring at the glowing control panels and trying to make sense of what had happened. Other compartments around her held alien beings of all shapes and sizes. Some whispered quietly to themselves. Others sat in silent resignation. None offered her comfort. At one point, Lyra pressed her small hand against the wall of the compartment and whispered to herself, "Is this the end?" The ship passed through a field of stars, and Lyra could see the faint outline of Terra Nova approaching. She had heard that humans lived there. They were rumored to be clever, strong, and sometimes unpredictable. But she had no idea what awaited her. Would they help her? Would they ignore her like everyone else had? As the ship neared Terra Nova, it docked at a large metallic structure that gleamed under the planet's sunlight. The alien merchant's holding facility was massive, with tall towers and corridors filled with strange lights and sounds. Lyra was led inside by the guards, her small frame barely making a sound as her feet touched the smooth floors. Inside, she saw other alien captives. Some were workers, some were scholars, and some were young like her. Many had tried to resist, but now they moved quietly, almost robotically, through the hallways. Lyra felt a deep loneliness. She had no friends, no family to turn to, and no idea what fate awaited her. She was placed in a large containment room, with walls made of shimmering force fields that pulsed faintly. The room was cold, and the strange hum of energy filled the air. Lyra hugged her knees, trying to make herself small, invisible, and unnoticed. Hours passed. She tried to think of ways to escape, but the room seemed impossible to break. Every plan she imagined ended in failure before it could even begin. Then, as she sat quietly, she noticed movement outside a large observation window. A human figure was walking along the corridors of the facility. He was tall, wearing a dark uniform with silver insignia, and his eyes scanned the area carefully. Lyra could not understand his language, but something about his presence made her feel different. She did not feel fear, she felt curiosity. The human paused near the control room. He studied the layout of the facility, watching the guards and the containment areas. Lyra's heart raced. Who was he? Why was he here? A part of her wanted to call out, but she stayed quiet, hidden in the shadows. Over the next several hours, she observed him from her compartment. Unlike the other humans she had read about in stories, cold, busy, and selfish, this human moved with purpose. He was not hurried, yet he was careful, watching everyone and everything. There was a calmness about him, but also a determination she had never seen before. Lyra realized something strange. For the first time since leaving her home, she felt hope. Maybe this human could help her. Maybe, just maybe, her life did not have to end in the cold halls of the merchant's facility. As night fell over Terra Nova, the human remained on his rounds. Lyra watched the stars outside, feeling small but not entirely helpless. A spark of courage lit inside her. She did not know what the future would hold, but she knew one thing: she was not ready to give up. Not yet. And somewhere in the corridors of the facility, Commander Ethan Ralston, the human she had been watching, began to notice irregularities in the records of the alien captives. Among them was Lyra, listed as property, marked for a life she did not deserve. His mind, sharp and decisive, began to form a plan that could change everything. For the first time in days, Lyra allowed herself a small, tentative smile. She did not know how or when or if she would be rescued, but she believed that maybe, just maybe, someone out there cared enough to change her fate. Commander Ethan Ralston studied the facility carefully. He had been observing the records of the Galactic Merchant Guild for days, noting the names of aliens who had been sold against their will. When he saw Lyra's name, he felt a mix of anger and determination. How could a family sell their own child? How could the council allow this to happen? Ethan knew that rescuing her would not be easy. The facility was heavily guarded, with automated drones patrolling every corridor and advanced security systems monitoring the containment units. But Ethan was not an ordinary human. He had trained for years as a commander and explorer, learning how to read situations, anticipate dangers, and act with precision. He also had something many did not: a belief that every life mattered. Under the cover of night, Ethan approached the facility. His uniform blended with the shadows, and his movements were careful but swift. He carried only a small toolkit, containing devices to bypass locks, access controls, and security systems. His mind worked like a machine, calculating paths, predicting guard patrols, and planning the fastest route to Lyra's containment unit. Inside the facility, Lyra was still sitting quietly, hugging her knees. She had heard whispers from other captives about humans, some good, some cruel. But this human, she did not know why, but she felt safe even seeing him. There was something in his eyes, something calm and kind that made her believe he was different. Ethan entered the control area silently. The room was filled with holographic screens displaying surveillance footage of every corridor, every holding room, every guard. He carefully adjusted the settings, diverting the attention of security drones for a short window of time. Lyra watched from her compartment as a shadow moved across the observation window. The human was closer now, and he spoke softly, not words she could understand, but a gentle tone that made her heart race. He gestured for her to stay calm. She hesitated, but chose to trust him. Ethan worked quickly, bypassing the containment unit's locks. The shimmering force fields flickered for a moment, then dimmed. He pressed a small button and the door slid open silently. "Come on," he said softly, pointing toward the exit corridor. Lyra stepped out carefully, her small hands trembling. Together they moved through the narrow tunnels of the facility. The patrol drones hovered nearby, scanning for movement, but Ethan's devices temporarily blinded their sensors. Lyra followed closely, trying to mirror Ethan's cautious steps. Every turn brought a new fear, yet she felt a strange sense of hope. As they reached a junction, a guard appeared, blocking their path. Ethan froze for a moment, assessing the situation. Then, with a swift move, he activated a small device that emitted a bright pulse. The guard's sensors went offline for a few seconds, allowing Ethan and Lyra to slip past unnoticed. Lyra could hardly believe what was happening. Humans, she realized, were clever and resourceful in ways she had never imagined. During their escape, Ethan spoke to Lyra in simple gestures, pointing at the paths they should take, drawing symbols in the air and showing her what to avoid. She began to understand, step by step, that this human was not only brave but also intelligent and compassionate. Every small action he took was aimed at keeping her safe. They finally reached a ventilation shaft that led to the outside of the facility. Ethan opened the grate carefully, and Lyra looked out at the sprawling city of Terra Nova, bathed in the soft light of 2 moons. For the first time in her life, she saw a world full of possibilities, a world where she might be free. Ethan guided her through the shaft and helped her climb down safely. The streets below were quiet and the air smelled different, fresh, clean, alive. Lyra took a deep breath, feeling the weight of fear begin to lift from her shoulders. She realized that humans, despite their small size compared to some alien species, had something remarkable: courage, ingenuity, and a willingness to fight for what was right. As they ran through the quiet streets, Lyra finally found her voice. Why are you helping me?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan smiled faintly. "Because everyone deserves a chance," he said simply. "Because no one should be sold or hurt for things they cannot control, because sometimes one person can make a difference." Lyra looked at him closely. She had never known kindness like this. On Zafara, she had seen humans in stories, but the reality was always distant, almost like a dream. Now standing beside Ethan, she understood that humans were capable of great things: bravery, compassion, and intelligence that could change the course of a life. They reached a safe hideout, a small abandoned building on the edge of the city, where Ethan had arranged temporary shelter. The interior was simple but comfortable, with blankets and basic supplies. Lyra sat down, still catching her breath, while Ethan checked the security of the area. "You're safe here for now," he said. "Tomorrow we plan the next steps. There's a council here that can protect you. You will not have to return to the facility." Lyra nodded slowly. She wanted to trust him completely, but a part of her still remembered the betrayal of her family. Still, she felt something stirring inside: hope. Perhaps her life was not defined by the actions of others. Perhaps with this human she could begin again. As night deepened, Lyra watched Ethan from across the room. He was quiet, focused, yet there was a gentle strength about him that reassured her. She realized that humans were not just ordinary beings. They could be clever, brave, and kind in ways that no one else could match. For the first time since being sold, Lyra allowed herself to imagine a future where she was free, where she could learn, grow, and maybe even thrive. And it was all because one human had decided that her life mattered. That night, as she closed her eyes on a simple blanket, Lyra whispered to herself, Maybe it's not the end." And somewhere in the city, Ethan remained vigilant, planning, protecting, and proving that sometimes one person could change everything. The next morning, Lyra woke to the soft light of Terra Nova's twin suns filtering through the small windows of the hideout. For the first time in days, she felt calm instead of frightened. The city outside buzzed quietly with activity: humans walking along the streets, traders moving goods, and alien residents blending seamlessly with them. This was a world so different from the cold, metallic corridors of the merchant's facility, a world that seemed alive with opportunity. Commander Ethan Ralston was already awake, checking a small map and making notes. When Lyra opened the door, he gave her a small, encouraging smile. "Today we start your new life," he said. "There's a council here that protects aliens like you. They can give you safety, education, and a chance to be free. But first you need to understand this world." Lyra followed him through the city streets, her violet eyes wide with wonder. The buildings were tall but elegant, with smooth curves and reflective glass. Humans and aliens interacted without fear or hostility. Children of different species played together in small parks, sharing toys and laughing. Markets sold foods and items from countless planets. Everywhere she looked, Lyra saw humans working hard, smiling, helping each other, and solving problems. Ethan guided her to the Council of Terra Nova, a large building at the city's center. The council was a mix of humans and aliens, each member chosen for their wisdom and fairness. As they entered, Lyra felt nervous. She had never been in a place like this. But Ethan's presence was calming, and she trusted him completely now. The council members listened carefully as Ethan explained Lyra's situation. They asked questions, took notes, and showed concern. One member, a tall alien with emerald skin, spoke kindly to Lyra, explaining that she would have protection and guidance. For the first time, Lyra felt the warmth of true safety. She was no longer a commodity, no longer trapped by the decisions of her family. Over the following weeks, Lyra began to learn about human society. She trained in communication, learning the human language and customs. She discovered their technology, practiced problem-solving skills, and even learned basic strategies for self-protection. Through each lesson, she noticed something remarkable. Humans were not only clever, but also determined and resourceful. They faced challenges with creativity and courage, using their intelligence to adapt and overcome obstacles that would have defeated other species. Ethan continued to mentor her, guiding her with patience and care. He explained human history, showing how humans often succeeded in situations where strength alone was not enough. Lyra realized that humans' greatest power was not their size or physical abilities. It was their mind, their courage, and their compassion. One afternoon, as they walked through the city's central park, Lyra paused to watch children playing. A small human girl was helping an alien toddler climb a jungle gym. Lyra turned to Ethan. They care about each other? She asked. Ethan nodded. Yes. Humans can be small, but their hearts and minds are very big. They fight for fairness and help when they see someone in need. That is why you are safe here. Lyra smiled, feeling a strange but comforting sense of belonging. She had left her home full of fear and betrayal. But here, among humans and aliens working together, she felt hope blossoming inside her. As days turned into weeks, Lyra grew stronger, more confident, and more curious. She explored Terra Nova under Ethan's guidance, visiting libraries, training halls, and workshops. She learned how humans adapted to challenges, how they invented solutions to problems, and how they worked together to build communities. Every discovery impressed her. Humans were ordinary in appearance, yet extraordinary in action. One evening, Lyra and Ethan watched the sunset from a high balcony overlooking the city. The twin suns cast golden and pink hues across the skyline. Lyra felt a sense of gratitude she had never known. Ethan, she said softly, I don't know how to thank you. You saved me. You showed me a new life. Ethan looked at her, his eyes reflecting the colors of the sunset. You don't need to thank me. You made choices too. You trusted, you learned, and you grew. That is what matters. Humans can guide, but the courage comes from within. Lyra realized he was right. She had survived her fear, trusted someone new, and begun to believe in herself. Her family's betrayal had once seemed like the end of everything, but now it felt like the start of something greater. In the following months, Lyra integrated fully into Terra Nova's society. She made friends, both human and alien, and discovered that her own skills, quick thinking, creativity, and empathy, were valued here. She no longer felt like a victim, but like a young alien capable of shaping her own destiny. One day, the council asked her to help with a project, a new school for young aliens and humans to learn together. Lyra eagerly accepted, using her experiences to guide and inspire others. She remembered the fear she had felt in the merchant's facility, and wanted no one else to endure what she had survived. Her work brought humans and aliens closer together, fostering understanding, trust, and cooperation. Ethan continued to watch over her, proud of her progress. He saw the spark of independence and courage growing in her eyes. You've come a long way, he said one day, smiling, and the journey is just beginning. But remember, no matter where life takes you, the courage and wisdom you have learned will guide you. Lyra nodded, her violet eyes shining. She had faced fear, betrayal, and uncertainty. She had been sold by her own family, trapped in a facility, and left alone in the universe. Yet here she stood, alive, empowered, and inspired by the very humans she had once doubted. She now understood something essential. Humans were extraordinary because they dared to care, to act, and to make a difference. And because of one human, Commander Ethan Ralston, her life had changed forever. The story closes with Lyra standing on the balcony, looking at Terra Nova's vibrant city. Her heart was full of hope, determination, and courage. She was no longer a captive, no longer defined by betrayal. She was free, ready to face the future, and ready to make her own mark on the universe. And in that moment, she knew that sometimes one human could indeed change everything.